Welcome to my budget deck channel where I try to make decks as cheap and playable as possible. So if this is something you'd be interested in, then why not subscribe? Today with another Plunder variant and no catchy name for the deck, but it is a, well, mix of the two. I want to say it's more of a Plunder deck than a Labrynth deck, obviously, but it has some bigger Labrynth options in here which go quite well with the Plunders. At first sight you might not really think that, but further down the line you realize, oh, there is quite a lot of potential that these decks work in harmony together, and let's find out why that is. I decided to go a bit of a, well, bigger Labrynth route than you might have to. You can do a completely different variant of this. There are multiple different options that you can go down, like which route you want to go down with the Plunder stuff, and with especially with the Labrynth stuff. I decided to go for a, well, a bit of a different route, and I'll be talking about why that is in a second. We have double Labrynth, Stovie, Torbie, whatever you want to call this. It is one of the ones that can discard one card from your hand and this itself, and then you can set one Labrynth spell trap from your hand or deck, funny enough. So this is quite interesting because it can help you go second from time to time, and also it can trigger your effects of the Plunder Patrol cards that will want to be in the graveyard or want to be discarded. So there is that. And also, if a monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect while this card's in your graveyard, you can special summon it. The other one can be added to your hand, so they basically both do the exact same thing. I feel like this is a bit better because it can be a 2000 defense point wall. This one, yeah, not so great in comparison, but is what it is. Sometimes you want another card in your hand as well because you want to discard lots of plunder stuff, so technically both of them have their applications, and I felt like 4 was a bit the ratio sweet spot for me. You can fine tune this if you feel like you have too many of those in your deck, then you can cut them down to 3. You can add more if you want to have more. I felt like 4 was round about the sweet spot for me because you see them, but you don't see them all the time. You don't really want to have 2 of them in your hand. You kind of would want 1 in your starting hand just to have the option, but yeah, kind of hard to find the right amount. 5 could be the right amount for all I care. You'd have to see, but it's not that easy to find deck spots. You can already see we're lacking any form of hand traps, even the ones that you get free in the Master Pack bundles, because it is so hard to cram any of this into this deck, because you do need normal traps, you do need all the monsters to go into combos, and you do need the spell cards as assistance for it, so very, very hard. And obviously you need plunder names as well, because that's what you discard from your hand. We have Whitebeard, a very, very, very important card in this deck, because not only if you discard it with any of the plunder stuff, you can trigger the effect and special summon from deck, but also if you discard it by the Labrynth card effects. So there is that, very, very nice. And you can summon it off of Ariane, one of the spoilers. This card very, very neat, and I'll talk about it in a second as well. So this one very nice. You can go into your extra deck monsters during your opponent's turn, and if it's discarded or sent to the graveyard on the field, then you can special summon 1 Plunder Patrol monster from your deck. Crazy. Obviously that then locks you into only Plunder Patrols, so you have to watch out a little bit, but that doesn't usually matter all that much for Labrynth anyway, because they special summon a lot during your opponent's turn, so that restriction doesn't really matter because it's only for the rest of this turn, so that's fine. And also technically if you want to summon anything else, then you can already do it before. Plus it's special summon, you don't have that many special summons anyway besides your trap card. We have 2 Redbeard. I cut this down a bit just to create some room for other shenanigans, and yeah, the effect is decent. You can summon it off of the deck with Whitebeard, so there's that. And then you can use that during your opponent's turn, so that can be very helpful. We have Bluebeard, also very nice because it recycles some things, it extends your plays. You can send stuff from your hand to the graveyard. Could even be some of the Labrynth things. The fun fact is, Labrynth doesn't have that many things that work well in the graveyard, although they have that many discard effects and whatnots. So you'd think they have more cards that work with the graveyard. I know there's the stuff that you can summon them back from the graveyard, like you can set traps from the graveyard and so on and so on, but this won't be as important in the deck because you can already see we have lovely Labrynth in the, well, suggested card pile, because obviously this deck already is brimming full of ultra rares and we don't want to include another one. Obviously, if you have this, you probably should be playing it at least at 1, because this card is very, very strong for Labrynths, but at the moment it works without it, but this card is obviously a nice to have. We have triple Goldenhair because this card is insane. It can discard stuff that you don't need in your hand or that you want in the graveyard. and also it can special summon itself 2 times, plus it's a tuner, plus it's a 2000 defense point wall, so we have that. We have Blackeyes, a very interesting card as well to recycle certain cards from your, well, mainly from your graveyard, because that's what the effect does, but you can also special summon things from your spell trap zone, which can come in handy from time to time. We have Ariane, and that is the one with an E at the end. That is the one that has an interesting effect that usually don't really run in Labrynth decks. But here you can send one normal trap from your hand or that set on your field to the graveyard, special summon one level 4 or lower Fiend monster from your deck in defense position. Fiend monster, not Labrynth, Fiend monster. So you can use this to get cards like Whitebeard out, then link them off into the Link monster, because the Link monster only needs one Plunder Patrol monster, very, very important. And then you can use the effect of Whitebeard, special summon one monster from the deck, and so you have a better combo going, and all you need to do is send one trap card to the graveyard, which, annoyingly, none of the trap cards really do much in the graveyard. I know the one Labrynth, the one does technically do some stuff, because it can set itself back, but that doesn't come up as much in a non-pure Labrynth version, so something you need to watch out for. But yeah, that is quite nice. And then it has the exact same effect as the other one. If another monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect, you can draw 1 card, and then you can apply this effect from your hand to either special summon 1 Fiend monster, can be very helpful, or set 1 spell trap. So there's that, but you cannot activate it the turn that is set, so something to keep in mind. You obviously can play Ariane if you want to. This card is a bit different. It does more for your Labrynth plays, but the issue with it is if you draw into this one, then usually you can't really that easily go into your Plunder plays, because your Plunder either need a Plunder monster on field, like only with Goldenhair it kind of works, because then you discard stuff and special summon things and whatnot. Because the other effect obviously would be during your opponent's turn, and that only matters then for stuff like Whitebeard and Redbeard, because if you summon them from the hand, you can then go into your Plunder stuff. But yeah, like I said, it doesn't really do that much for your own turn. It mainly starts your Labrynth plays, and yeah, sometimes that's nice, sometimes that isn't so nice. Depends on how your hand is. I feel like I prefer the version that goes more into the Plunder deck, because it's still more of a Plunder deck than a Labrynth deck, but technically you can make the case for playing this card instead, and just, well, doing different kind of combos. But in testing, I bricked more using this one than the other one, so that is why I decided this one. Now we talk about the replacement for the lovely Labrynth. We have Labrynth Archfiend, a card that first of all can help you finish games, because this card's attack stats can go reasonably high. Also, this card searches you 1 trap that can get rid of any face-up card on the field that can be targeted and destroyed, which isn't too bad, because some back row stuff, some floodgatey things can be annoying, and then technically this card can get you into your Farewelcome Labrynth, and in the end, usually that is not too bad, so it also pluses you a little bit. Plus, this card isn't dead in hand, because if a trap card is activated any side of the field, you can special summon this card from your hand. So there's that as well. So overall, it's not a terrible card for the fact that's a rare. I prefer running this over this one, unless I have it. If I would have to craft it, I'll try the deck out before. But if I already have lovely Labrynth, I might run it, but then you have the issue that if you end up with this card in hand, you lose out on some stuff. We run 1 Plunder Patrol, Shipshape, Shipyarrrd, Shipshape, whatever thing. Technically you can use to fusion summon, but mainly for the graveyard effect, and you can search this card, and then you can equip one from the deck, and that can be very helpful from time to time, because some of your ships want to be equipped, and sometimes you won't have that kind of equip, so that's also fine. And you have plenty of things to discard this card with, so if you have it in your hand, it usually doesn't matter, because you need a discard anyway. But you can also play the equip card instead. You can cut this for anything. And one thing I wanted to mention, technically Plunders have a normal trap card, so that can come in handy from time to time if you activate one. You could search it. The effect isn't amazing. It can help you get cards back into your deck, and it's searchable, and it can equip from the graveyard, so if you discard it, it actually has an effect in the graveyard. So there's that. You could try it out if you really want to, but I don't think it's worth it. But it's a searchable normal trap, so there's that, and that can be somewhat helpful for Ariane, for example. Something to keep in mind. Don't think it's very good though. We obviously have 3 Shipyarrrd, because this is a massive play starter for the deck, so I wanted to definitely make use of that one. But you could cut it down to 2 if you want to. I wish you could technically play this at 2, have 1 terraforming and 1 Labrynth. Obviously you can't do that anymore, because terraforming is banned. Very annoying, so you have to do it this way. 1 Labrynth. I kind of like the card itself. I don't know if it's the best choice for this deck though. Yes, you can search it easily-ish, but it obviously conflicts with those two. Although if this goes to the graveyard, you can easily get it back. So you can just use the effect of this one first and then go into this one if you want to. It's a bit problematic from time to time though. So yeah, you could cut this if you want to keep the deck as cheap as possible and just try it out without it, because this one is usually quite good with the lovely Labrynth, and since we don't run this anyway, you have, well, definitely a bit of an issue because we only run one Welcome Labrynth, so the whole thing of this effect kind of doesn't matter too much with the destroying one card. It's more like if you activate a non-Labrynth normal trap, which would help with the whole Plunder Patrol one as well, then you can special summon one Fiend monster from your hand or graveyard so you can get some of your extra deck ships back. This is why this card is mainly in here. Technically, you also still have the Farewelcome Labrynth as well, but yeah, like I said, it isn't as good as in a pure version, so could cut this if you really want it to be as cheap as possible. We have 2 Ring of Destruction, helps you OTK, is a normal trap card, and triggers the whole getting rid of a card on field with normal trap card effect, so that is not too bad. You obviously have to watch out, only during your opponent's turn you can use this card. There are probably some better trap cards you could be using as well, but this is the card of choice that I decided to go for. And it can be nice, obviously can be a bit problematic, and it's a hard once per turn, so 2 is the maximum I want to go with. We have 2 Torrential Tribute. This card is good, and it can stall you a bit if you don't get into most of your plays, and it can trigger your Labrynth effects and so on and so on. But it does conflict with most of the Plunder stuff, sadly, so I don't really want to run it, but sometimes this card is just, well, too good not to run it, so I included it. But if you have any good, well, I don't want to say hand traps because you need the normal traps, any other normal traps where you can pump some stuff that isn't the Dogmatica card, because obviously you want to be summoning from the extra deck in this variant, then yeah, Torrential Tribute can be replaced, but I feel like it's still decent in the deck, although it hinders you a little bit. We have Triple Compulse, because this also gets rid of stuff on board and is a normal trap, so it triggers some effects. Then we have 1 Welcome Labrynth, mainly because you have 4 searches of this card. That is because you don't run Ariane. Ariane would obviously search this card more, and then you would be more in the Labrynth kind of playstyle, but it is what it is. I think 1 is enough. You obviously want to be playing 2 to 3. Yeah, for a budget deck, not really achievable, especially because the Plunder package is already very expensive. So we can special summon 1 Labrynth monster from your deck. See, it's also only summons from your deck, so if you would draw into lovely Labrynth, you are a bit screwed. You can still go into Ariane, but the effect of it isn't that good during opponent's turn. So yeah, there is that one. And you cannot special summon monsters from their deck or extra deck except Fiend monsters, doesn't really matter for us. And if a monster leaves the field by your normal trap effect while this card is in the graveyard, except the turn it was sent to, very important, you can set this card. Sadly, you cannot activate it that turn, so if you send it to the graveyard by discard, for example, with the Plunder stuff, then it's in the graveyard. The next turn, you get rid of stuff because you drew also into evac or whatever. Then you can set it again, and then during your turn, you can use the effect of this card to summon something. It takes a bit long, but in the grind game, this can come in handy, obviously. Double Farewelcome Labrynth, just so we have more Labrynth trap cards in here that we can search with those 2, because they can come back quite a lot. So that could be helpful from time to time. The effect is a bit iffy because it's when a monster declares an attack. Any monster, so if your opponent declares one, it's also fine. But it's very televised if you search it as well. And you have to control a Fiend monster. You can target 1 card on the field at least, not even face up any card. Negate the attack if you do destroy that targeted card. Then you can set 1 non-Labrynth normal trap from your deck or hand. Very, very important. You can go into lots of things. So if this card's effect goes off, it's very strong, but it doesn't go off all that much. So that is something to keep in mind. We have Archfiend's Ghastly Glitch, a very, very, very interesting card that, well, it doesn't super synergize with Labrynth, although it does send Goldenhair to the graveyard. Ooh, and this card can summon itself from the graveyard, so we have that going for ourselves, and obviously pops 1 card on the field, so also very, very important. And you have to control a Fiend monster, which you aim to do anyway in this deck. If you go first, end your turn without a Fiend monster on board, lots of stuff has probably gone wrong at that point. So yeah, 2 of this is definitely nice. And 1 Plunder Patrol Booty. I'm still not 100% sure if we need this card or not, but it can summon stuff back from the graveyard, especially if you run lower rates now of the extra deck monsters to keep it more budget. This is somewhat important, and the whole attribute changes obviously also not too bad. For the extra deck, only 1 Liceless, only 1 Bran, only 1 Yard, only 1 Murk, whatever it's called, and only 1 Blackbeard. So we have a little less than you usually want of the Plunder Patrol ships. Obviously, if you have them, play 2 of this, play 2 of this, play 2 of this, play 2 of this, and play 2 to 3 of this one, and you should be a bit better off. But this is a budget variant, and it works like this. There's tons of recurring things. You have Blackeyes that can get stuff back. You have Yugioh that can get stuff back. So there's all of these kind of things. You can do lots of things. You have Booty that can summon stuff from the graveyard, and so on and so on and so on. So not too terrible, I would say, to get these cards back into the extra deck or back on board. So sometimes we just have to deal with losing a bit of resources here. We do run stuff like Evil Swarm Nightmare still, because technically you have double of this, but this can't summon itself, so you'd have to just have this on board already and then summon another one. But we don't go into these kind of cards anyway, really, because it's very hard to do so, because you're usually like Fiend locked, and there's not that many good Fiend cards that would work in this deck, especially in our budget. So we just run some extra deck stuff that if it comes up, it can be helpful, but not really worth investing into any of this. There's obviously cards that you can be playing, but you don't have to. Other cards to mention, obviously you see a lack of hand traps. Find a way to maybe include some good ones, at least 3. The deck is okay at go in second, but yeah, you sometimes want some more. Obviously things like triple tactics talent can be very helpful, Caught by the Grave, very helpful. Then you have things like Evenly Match that can be very helpful. Technically you could play 1 or 2 Lord of the Heavenly Prison, because this can search you any kind of spell trap from your deck, so you can technically also search Plunder Patrol Shipyarrrd, if I'm not mistaken. That can be somewhat nice in this specific deck, and it protects your back row, can be good as well. You could play Lost Wind, because this is a card that actually profits from being discarded in comparison to other ones, but then it doesn't have the effect of getting rid of monsters on board, so it doesn't trigger some of the Labrynth things, and so on and so on and so on. You see the problem. You could be running 1 Storming Mirror Force in here, because the Archfiend searches it, so there is that one, and technically Farewelcome also searches it, so you have that going for you. Cards that are good, Salmon Great Amourage can be quite nice, because you can link off stuff like Goldenhair and then instantly go into Blackbeard, so that is nice. We have Zeus and Baguska, cards that work really well, because you do have options to go into Xyz, so that wouldn't be too bad either. Well, that's it for the deck list. Let's talk about the rating of this deck. Alright, let's talk about the power level, the strength of this deck. And I'm talking about this specific list, I always have to say this. It's not about Plunder, Labrynth in general, it's just this particular list. And I would say it's a decent 3 out of 5. This deck can pump up a lot of power plays, it can do a lot of damage to your opponent, but also it can be somewhat bricky, and it falls apart more easy than certain other decks. So there's a bit of this, and as usual when you have 2 engines in one deck, you do struggle sometimes if you draw too much of one, or like not enough of any, or the mix doesn't quite work out, or you have too many normal traps in here, and then you just stall a bit, and then you're kind of out of resources already, so you have that bit of an issue. You can easily go first, and the go first boards are fairly decent, but going second isn't too much of an issue for you as well. It depends on what your opponent's board puts up, and since you don't run hand traps, it's still complicated. But some other budget decks that want to go first do absolutely nothing going second, and this is a bit different, because you can search out things during your opponent's turn. The plunder stuff isn't too bad going second either, so you have that, and sometimes just setting 1 or 2 traps can be enough to stall your opponent out a little bit still, even if they have an established board. Obviously not against the crazy combo decks, because then you're a bit of an issue. Other than that, yes, I would say like a solid 3 out of 5. It's not crazy, but it's also not really good. When we talk about consistency, I want to give this a, oh, that's very, very hard. I'm gonna say with this one a very, very, very low 3 out of 5. I know it's a bit better than the other Plunder one, because technically you have 2 sides of plays that you can do, and with the Ariane in here, you can have, well, some boost of consistency if you get a normal trap as well. A bit difficult, but you have plenty of ways, because it can also send 1 from board, so the whole searchers also work with it. There is a bit more consistency to do stuff, but there's less consistency to end up on a crazy board. But I feel like it does boost it a little bit, so I would say a very, very low 3 out of 5. When we talk about budget value, so hard, because it's difficult again. I want to give this a very, very, very low 3 out of 5, and that is because this time we run 2 archetype-ish in here. Actually, let's scrap that. We say a very low, very high 2 out of 5, because you don't really run any of the Labrynth cards that you put in this deck in any other Labrynth deck, because Ariane isn't a staple in any actual Labrynth deck, so it doesn't do anything for Labrynth at all, and it just makes the deck a lot more expensive. So yeah, 2 out of 5 is the most I can actually give it if I really think about it, because I thought, oh, maybe the fact that you run 2 different archetypes makes it a bit better, because obviously you can then say, oh yeah, you have like half or full, nearly like a full core of both decks, but you don't have any core really of Labrynth beside one field spell, one of the ultra rare traps, and Ariane is maximum a 1-off in any Labrynth deck, so yeah, I don't think that makes much of a difference. It just makes the deck a lot more expensive, and for Plunder, you will have a deck that works-ish, that you can play as a budget deck, and with all of these cards you can play it, so it does stuff, but it lacks power, it lacks consistency, and it lacks cards in the extra deck, because obviously the main Plunder, if you want to play pure Plunder, you want to run 2 of most of the extra deck ships, because that is kind of your stick at this point. It is what it is, yeah. High 2 out of 5 in the end, but still a 2 out of 5 when it comes to budget value. Let's move on to the replay section. Alright, we are going second. This has become a bit of a theme these days, so I don't know why that is, but it is what it is. The opponent is playing What Do You Think? Guess by the profile picture and the board and everything. It is Dark Magician, so yeah, we will have a bit of a control up here and see what they can be doing. We have a decent hand. We have the whole combo of Whitebeard plus one of the Labrynths that discard during your opponent's turn, so we can already set up some plays. And this combo is quite fun in particular, because if you discard this, you can then go into, I think it's Bluebeard or whatever, Redbeard or whatever it is, the one that can also summon during your opponent's turn. And then you can use the quick effect, depending on what monster they put out, to go into one of your extra deck monsters and already do stuff to their board at any given moment. So that is one of the plays that's, for example, pure Plunder can't really do that easily, but this deck can, so I really like that one. Then you have the trap card ready for the next turn. You can go into like any of your Labyrinths, and yeah, it's not a terrible hand to have. We have some normal traps, we have some extenders, stuff can be done. We see what they do. They start with Salvation, they have Eternal Soul. Will they have a way to search stuff? Yes, they go into Magician's Rod, not Soul, so that's very interesting. We have the Dark Magical Circle, so we nearly have all the combo pieces. All we need now is a Dark Magician, and doesn't look like they have one. That's them ending their turn, and I thought, let's go for the combos here. I can go into Morgue, I can search some stuff out of my deck with that one, and I can send the Labyrinth, and they can't respond to it yet, so we should be fairly safe doing all of this. Now go into Redbeard, and we can now go into Morgue because they have a dark monster. We can discard 1 Plunder card and then banish this one. I decided to banish here and use the effect because, first of all, this card can constantly come back, and it's quite good to get it out of the rotation, but also it's important for the fact that I can now search a Plunder spell trap, and I felt like getting the field spell was kind of crucial as well. And I knew they have Eternal Soul anyway, so their Dark Magicians would be protected from this card anyway, so I thought it's not going to be too bad getting rid of this. Plus, I could technically use the effect of Bluebeard now and cycle through some stuff, because Ring of Destruction is not all that good against Dark Magician, so I thought might as well get rid of that one then. We have 1 Shipyarrrd now they send that to the graveyard. We have a compulsory evacuation device, so much better than Ring of Destruction, not at all, but it is what it is. We still have the trap here, and during the turn, I thought, let's go for the trap here, and they have Magician Navigation. Not enough decks play this because it can be quite bricky, but if it works out, it is a very strong card, and for them, it does seem to work out. They seem to have 1 Dark Magician in their hand. Lucky them. They can now summon stuff and banish things on my board. Let's see what they decide to banish. I thought, let's give them 2 options. We have either Morgue that they can banish, which they shouldn't banish in my opinion, because it does nothing to them, neither attack stat wise, nor with the protection of Eternal Soul wise. So I thought it would be smarter to go for the banish on Ariane, but they don't know what my hand is obviously, and they think ship bad, so we get rid of this one, and they do decide to banish this, and they flip their Eternal Soul, so they have the protection, and they search the Dark Magic attack. Very interesting, because they see we play Labyrinth, so why not get some spell trap destruction? Can be very crucial for them as well. But they didn't think we can combo off, and now we have Whitebeard. We go into Bran. Very, very interesting, because of the fact that we don't need the whole attribute, because we have a tuner with our neat little Whitebeard, and we have a level 4 monster. so we can go into Bran anyway, and this card doesn't need to be equipped. The equip is only to make it a quick effect, which is very important, but we can easily get rid of Eternal Soul here. Fun, 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 fun. And then they lose their entire board. So I felt like this was a good thing. I decided to get a Goldenhair into rotation so we can summon this card out from the graveyard and have some plays. And now I get rid of the Shipyarrrd because I know I can set this back with the effect of this one if I go into the whole Bluebeard stuff, and there's lots of things I can do from this point onwards, so it didn't matter too much to lose this here because we can now search a monster card anyway, and then we can go into lots of different things. The Synchro comes to mind as well, getting rid of all of their board. Now we add our Bluebeard back by summoning Blackeyes, and this card can now go into the Synchro if I'm not mistaken, because we do need this one. I summon an attack position because I hope I could finish the game here at this point already, get the Shipyarrrd back with the effect of that one, and then get one monster on their board, because at this point I either can do it like this and keep on playing and maybe not be finishing them because I can't get rid of the token because we only run one Morg. That's the problem, you see. We have one Morg banished now. If we had a second one, we would have been able to clean up this game, I think, during this turn, but the fact that we don't makes this a bit harder. Budget decks, you know how it is. So we have to work around this a little bit, going into Lice here. Well, first Blackbeard and then Lice to get one more card. We discard Torrential Tribute because also not a card that helps us at the moment anymore at all, and does very little against Eternal Soul with Dark Magician, so I felt like not really that necessary here. Also same for the Welcome Labrynth. It can be nice because you can target one card in the field, very important, but we already had Ghastly Glitch, and Ghastly Glitch is a bit easier to pull off because nobody has to attack for it, so we can just chain it to anything since we have field monsters on board. That made a lot more sense. So we have that, and now going into the whole Plunder Patroll Shipyarrrd, because this boosts our attack. We have Lice on here, so if they have a monster effect, I mean they do with souls and everything, you can negate that one technically too, so there's that. Now we discard the Evacuation device, add this card to hand, so we can discard it and have an effect during the opponent's turn, that not during the opponent's turn, but like in a graveyard, then if we discard during the opponent's turn, so we can use that one as well next turn to equip some from our graveyards. And yeah, this is where we kind of have to stop it a little bit, because I think I might have missed lethal here, don't know, but I think we ran out of summons and there was not a way to get another monster on board with 2000 attack points. Although I think I used all the special summon effects as well. I'm not sure if I added a Goldenhair instead and discarded this one, it could have summoned it and then it boosted by the 500 from this card and 500 from this card. I think we would still be 500 off if I'm not mistaken. Also, I wasn't sure if I had used Goldenhair's effect to summon from hand. I think you can look it up, but yeah, that was more of the case. Technically, could have summoned out Goldenhair, but this effect is also during the main phase only, so you then lose the 500 attack point boost on all of these cards, so I didn't want to do that either. So yeah, this is our board turn board for their turn. We have to keep in mind this is not a quick effect because it's not equipped by a Plunder Patrol card, so that can be a tiny bit annoying from time to time, but it is what it is. Not too bad. They have another one of this, they get into another Eternal Soul, they pass on the turn here, and at this point we can just get rid of their Eternal Soul. They chain max the because it doesn't matter anymore, and at this point we have just won the game because they have nothing from their hand that can really stop this. We have a monster effect negate anyway, even if they did, and that is game. Hopefully you saw a bit of what this deck can do, and it also showed a bit of the weaknesses, the whole fact that it's a budget deck and you kind of want to run more of the ships than you do, and that can be problematic from time to time, so there's that. But you also can see it can still put up nearly the same boards, if not the same boards as any other Plunder variant, and it has the backhold of some of the stronger normal traps and some of the consistency boosts by the Labrynth card, so not too bad of a deck in the first place, but it is fairly easy disruptible. And obviously if they would have gotten rid of not my ship but the other one, the Ariane, then we would have been a bit in trouble here, but they didn't. So yeah, you can see if the opponent really knows what they're doing, then you have a harder time, obviously. Same for basically every game and every deck, but yeah, the deck does stuff. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, but most importantly, I hope you have a nice day.